I'm back with another video this week. A couple of days ago I gave you guys some options as to what you'd like to know in terms of indie publishing tips. I forget what the options were, but the winner of the week was, can I make a living as a writer? And I'm really glad that you guys picked this topic because it's something I'm really passionate about. Pretty much from the beginning I was told that no, you can't make a living as a writer. I was told that in primary school, I was told that in high school, and funnily enough I was told that in a creative writing degree. So thanks for that, 25 grand later, and apparently I can't make a living from it. But the answer for me is yes, you can make a living as a writer. I've been doing that for the last 3 years full time. All my income has been through my novels, The Oramy Chronicles. I published Heart of Mist back in 2017, and pretty much I published that at the end of August, and then by the end of January the following year I'd quit my job and became a full-time writer, and I've been doing that ever since. So I've made a couple of points. This is going to be a bit like all over the place. It's a tricky topic, not because it's impossible, but just because it can be so different for everyone. Obviously, this video is based on my own experiences. You know, some of the things that I've done or have happened for me might not be applicable to some people, but I think what I can do is give like sort of an overview of how I've done things and what I think is possible in the current like indie publishing climate. And it's worth noting that pretty much everything I'm talking about here is to do with indie publishing. Traditional publishing is not my jam at all. I've been indie publishing for the last 3-4 years. So yeah, basically anything I'm saying today is to do with indie publishing only. So if you want a traditional kind of view of things, you might have to go elsewhere. So basically, I've got some notes here, so that's why I'm going to be jumping back and forth. But I'm pretty much proof that you can make a living as a writer. I've made more money from my 3 full-length novels and a collection of short stories than I have in any salary paid job that I had before that. But before you can make a living as an author, I'm going to assume that you have a couple of things: that you have a good professionally edited book, that you have a great cover, that you have a great blurb, and also that you have the money to make all this stuff happen, because you get what you pay for. If you design a cover yourself and you're not a designer, nobody's going to buy it. It's not, you have to put in what you want to get out of something, I think. So I have invested heavily in myself with all my books. I've paid for top quality editors, top quality designers. I've invested in a formatting program that I've then taught myself how to use. I've formatted all my own books, plus all the Talon Press books that have been published as well. But yeah, I'm not going to lie, you do need money to achieve these things, because you need to invest in high quality freelancers, basically. But so I'll tell you a little bit how this has all worked for me. I get paid monthly by Amazon. I have separate personal and business bank accounts, and from my business bank accounts, that's how I pay all my freelancers, so editor, cover designer, who else do I have? My map maker, all of those people. And as an indie author, you are a small business, so you have to operate as such. So you need to be able to say, this is a business expense. This, new dress that I bought is not a business expense. So that's why you have the two separate accounts. In terms of what I do, obviously I'm a full-time author, so you assume I write, which is correct, but also I hire all my own freelancers. So I've gone through a process of getting sample edits off editors and proofreaders, creating my own cover briefs and working with different cover designers until I find the perfect one. Same goes for my map designer. I manage my own newsletter, my website. I manage all my own finances, which is quite scary considering my maths is not my strong suit. I manage all my marketing budgets, all my advertising. As you guys probably can tell, I manage my own social media. and my own outreach marketing. By outreach, I mean contacting book reviewers and bloggers to see if they want to work together to help spread the word about books and things. Basically, any of that stuff, that's what I do in any given day. It's not just writing, and I think it's really important that if you're considering becoming a full-time author, that you realize you're not going to get to sit down and write from 9 to 5 every day. There's a lot of this other business stuff, marketing stuff that you've got to layer in there as well, because if nobody can find you, if nobody can find your books or knows about your books, you're not going to make an income. I also create my own production and publication schedule, which means I decide when my books come out and how often they come out, and also how many books will be in a series, that sort of thing. So all of that is my decision, which is creatively very freeing, but also it's quite a big responsibility to not have sort of like a higher up telling you this is a good time to release a book, or this should be a duology, not a trilogy, or, you've got to make these decisions for yourself, and you're your own boss, basically. I'm also constantly seeking new learning resources, so I enroll in courses. I do courses on a regular basis. I buy marketing books, publishing books, all of books that tell me how the latest strategies. There's books on pricing strategies, books on Facebook advertising, marketing techniques, all of this stuff. So I think if you are going to go down the full-time author road, you do need to be constantly learning, because the indie publishing scene changes so regularly. It's really important that you stay on top of things, not necessarily to be on trend, because I'm not sure how keen on trends I am, but definitely in terms of the technology and the marketing strategies, it is constantly evolving. So you've constantly, as a business owner, got to stay on top of that. So far throughout my career, I've published pretty much a book a year, which is more in line with with traditionally published timelines. That's sort of how I initially set things out. I'm mentioning this because the regularity in which you publish is really important to your income, to staying on track with your readers and fans and stuff. So I'll come back to that in a bit, but yeah, that's at the moment I publish once a year. Ideally, I would like to publish maybe once every 6 months, but we'll see how that goes, because my books, where are we? Yeah, that's a big book, so it's a big ask to publish 2 of these a year. A lot of work and rework goes into them. Anyway, it is that, and I'll just come back to that, with publishing more than 1 book a year. For me, at the moment, I'm sort of stockpiling, so I've got 1 book pretty much done, and then another one I'm second drafting. So I'll come back to that, I think. But basically what I'm trying to say is you have to find the balance between writing and all the production and marketing, but also find the balance between producing content, because once you start publishing, you can't stop, if that makes sense. By the time my next book comes out, I'll probably have had a year between releases, which I'm feeling the pinch of that now. So the more regularly you publish, the better, as long as the quality doesn't dip. Anyway, if that's all sounding a bit heavy, that's probably because it is. As a full-time indie author, you are a business, and you have to run as such. Think of any company you know, and all the different departments, like sales, marketing, accounts. It's been a long time since I've been in a company, but all those different departments, if you're an indie author, they fall to you. So that's really important, that you kind of get a grip on the fact that you're going to have to manage all these different aspects of a business. And this isn't to scare you off. That's just to make sure that you don't have this false image of, a writer sitting down by the fire every day and just kind of tapping away at the computer and, suddenly they've got millions. That's not how it works. You do have to take into consideration all these different elements. But, and I said this was going to be a bit all over the place, if you have specific questions, just comment below this video, and yeah, I'll do my best to answer them. And as I said, the thing is, it's different for everyone. But some things that you should consider is that I chose to indie publish, and that, I think, for me is probably the only way I could have afforded to make a living as a writer. If you indie publish, you have a much higher royalty rate. So currently I get 70% of any sale of my book on Amazon, pretty much. Whereas if I was traditionally published, I might only get 10% of that. And you're still expected to do quite a lot of marketing and stuff if you're traditionally published. So you do get higher royalty rates. Another thing that I love about it is that you get ownership over your production and your publishing schedule. So I've had plenty of people in the traditional space, you know, their books get pushed back, or, you know, they get dropped after the first book doesn't sell as well. If you're indie published, you have control over that. You put out a book when you want. You put as many books out as you want in the series, all that stuff. And then you also have control over your marketing, so your cover, but also who you want to represent your brand and who you want to push your product. Whereas if you were traditionally published, you probably wouldn't have as much control. Writing a series is really important for indie publishers who want to make a living as an author. Basically, that's pretty much the advice that every author I've ever heard who makes a living has said, that writing a series is where the money's at. Because the time you release one, you find a readership for one, and then you have your next book and you've got an inbuilt audience already, but then also through the marketing of the second one, you might find new readers for the first one, and you kind of have this kind of flow-on chain from that first book. And every time you release a book, you get new eyes on the first book and hopefully introduce new readers into that initial funnel, I think it's called. Another thing that's really important is genre. So I'm sure a lot of you are aware that some genres are just more lucrative than others. Fantasy is a huge one. Urban paranormal fantasy is another one, or romance. Romance is huge. I think that's because there are a lot of like binge readers and they love series. I am yet to find a full-time author who makes a like decent living who writes literary fiction or poetry. That's not to say that there aren't, but I think it's far less common, and I think it's much harder to make a living off those sort of more highbrow genres. But yeah, another thing to consider, as I think I mentioned, once you start publishing, there's this constant pressure to produce and to continue to publish. So that's something to be aware of before you dive headfirst into full-time work as an author. I've talked about once you're writing for a living, you won't be writing all day. Yeah, so I'm not going to go into the specifics of how much I earn. There are plenty of authors who do that. So if you're interested in, not necessarily what to expect, but what's possible, I would definitely look up the Facebook group called 20 Books to 50K. That is full of authors who are making, 6 figures a month and, crazy things like that. So I'd recommend you check that out. There's also a podcast called 6 Figure Authors. That's fantastic as well. It's run by 3 authors who have earned 6 figures from their books. I'm not sure in what time frame, because I've earned 6 figures from my books, but it might be in a specific time frame. But yeah, as I said, I'm not going to go into the specifics about my earnings, but it is definitely possible. So I, pretty much as soon as I published Heart of Mist, I moved into an apartment by myself by the beach. I was able to pay the rent there, live there for over a year. Then I was able to move to New Zealand, and earn a living here full-time as well. So it's definitely possible. I think it's far more possible as an indie author. And pretty much every time I talk to someone who's working on a manuscript who's tossing up their publishing options, I definitely recommend indie publishing far more than... It depends what you want, and I think that's really important to know, what your goals are. If your goal is to be this... you know, prestigious author who's reviewed in newspapers and goes on tour and things like that, maybe traditional is more for you. But if you're really keen to earn a living full-time from your writing, I think indie publishing is the best option. But as I said, if you've got specific questions, leave them in the comments below. You can also email me or chat to me in private messages and stuff. I'm always around to help. Yeah, I'm sorry this was a bit scattered. That was just my thought process when I was making these notes. So yeah, let me know what you think, and if there are other videos you'd like to see, let me know. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.